doesn't work. They've tried everything else. And so the only thing left for them to do is fucking burn the fucking city down because they're so fucking angry, and to get attention and people to say, listen to me, this is wrong. Yes, it is a stupid thing to do. And there's a much more constructive way for them to have actually made their point. I agree with that. However, to say that their reasons are unjustifiable is wrong and inconsiderate and just basically ignorant, essentially. So then I scroll down on her page and she posted something hours before that or something. Or it was either the day before or hours before. And she said that, all these people in Ferguson rioting, I guess there won't be any grape soda or watermelon left. Something like that. Yes. So, and this is a Caucasian person, by the way, obviously, who said this. And, you know, his family is from Waco, and they're from very, they're kind of quote unquote country people. You know what I mean? And so was it surprising to me? Yes, because I didn't think that she was like that. I didn't think she thought that way. And I was really surprised that she thought that way. Just because she comes from that place doesn't mean she has to think that way and be that ignorant, but she apparently is. And so I told her, I said, essentially, actually what I said was, I said, that's the most ignorant thing you've ever said. Or something like that. And then I deleted her from my Facebook, and that was it. So that was all I said about it. And that pissed me off and upset me. You know, for someone to say those things is just completely ignorant. And whether they find it to be funny or not, whether they find it to be something that is acceptable for them to say or not, is completely irrelevant, because it's not acceptable for them to say it, whether they find it to be or not, whether they think it's okay or someone says it is, it's not okay. So I was a bit pissed, not pissed so much as disappointed in this girl. She's only like 25 or something like that. And she's like a single parent, and I don't know, she's divorced and, whatever, typical story of somebody from the country anyway. And so I wasn't exactly shocked, but I was disappointed. So then her sister, whom is a little different than she is, she's a little more, I think she's older, first of all. She's probably closer to my age, like 30 or something. And she's more, she's definitely more even-keeled and seems a little more mature to me. Her name is Rachel, and she posted on Facebook to me, I posted on Facebook a thing about how there was a black cop who in like Ferguson or whatever, whom years before had hit a white person with a baton, okay, to disable them. And he hit them on the wrist or something, and it broke the wrist or hurt their wrist or something. The black man, who was a cop, was indicted, first of all, and then charged as a felon, and then went to jail for 4 years for doing that. Okay. The same location, the same type of organization, the same type of thing happened with Ferguson with this other cop. What's his name? Daryl or Darren White, or whatever the fuck his name was. Anyway, that guy, the cop, we did the same thing to Michael Brown, except he used a gun, and 12 times, actually not the same thing, but far more force, and killed the black man. And he did not end up being indicted, not even indicted. He didn't get indicted or go to jail or anything, do any time or anything. So on this meme, on this internet meme, it has them side by side. It tells about how the difference is between them. And I said, yeah, where's the justice in this? And where's people's outrage about this? And so Rachel says something. She says, cops are, and she's married to a cop, by the way, and she says cops are required to respond in force when someone attacks their weapon. First of all, there's no proof that ever happened, but let's say that it did. So she says that someone's required to respond or to draw their gun or fire back or something like that. And And she said, what's race have to do with that? She said. And so I responded to her and I said, race has a hell of a lot to do with it. And I told her why. And I told her to read this article. And that's the article I'm going to read to you. It's very short, but I want to read it to you just because it says it far better than I could ever do it. And it's called The Truth About the Ferguson Case That Some People Really Cannot Accept. And the author is Adam Mordecai. And this is what he says. And it's very, very good. He says, some things I have learned. ProPublica recently did an in-depth analysis and found that black kids between ages 15 and 19 are 21 times more likely to be shot and killed by cops than white kids of the same age. That's an insane statistic. That's per capita, not total. If you are a black teenage boy, you have a 21 times higher risk of being shot by police than a white teenage boy. Also, in 2010, federal prosecutors took 162,000 cases to a grand jury. You know how many didn't go to trial? 11. Mike Brown's family will never get a state criminal trial to get justice for their son. And the testimony that denied them that right technically doesn't make any sense. Seriously, go read it. Police have a hard job. What they do is something I could never do. But you know what they rarely have? Accountability. In this case, the prosecutor, Robert McCullough, always gets indictments. Always, unless it's a cop. He has 5 cop-involved killing cases and 0 indictments. Let me say that again. He has 5 cop-involved killing cases and 0 indictments. Again, 5 cases against police haven't made it to trial at all. He could get an indictment if he wanted one. Don't believe me? This is what a public defender says. My armchair opinion, speaking as a public defender, is that the prosecutor made some questionable decisions on what evidence to present to the grand jury. The grand jury system is often criticized by me and other defense attorneys as the playground of the prosecutor, and they get to basically limit and control all evidence that a grand jury considers in order to get whatever result they want. In this situation, it seems extremely questionable to have the actual officer testify at a grand jury hearing. It makes it personal for the grand jury. It makes it more about do we believe him or not, instead of whether the legal standard is met or not. And it provides massive amounts of irrelevant evidence that is confusing and not relevant to the decisions that they need to make. Probable cause clearly exists with nothing more than the number 1, number of shots fired, 2, the fact that the suspect was unarmed, and 3, the dispute between medical examiners on, whether he was murdered or whatever, how he was killed. 4, even a single witness that says something that doesn't match exactly with the officer's testimony. I cannot count the number of times the judge has told me probable cause is an extremely low standard, but your objection is noted for the record. In most cases, all it takes is a single witness that says something that might be a crime or a single discrepancy in testimony from someone claiming to be innocent. If just a single witness says his back was turned, that is probable cause for every defendant I have ever represented, which are, of course, the poor and people of color. If there is even a single thought of, quote, did he really need to pull his gun? Are we 100% sure? You have probable cause. The prosecutor's decision to put all evidence before the grand jury seems extremely suspect to me. If he wanted to simply present enough to indict, which is his job in that situation, he would have only put on the evidence that raised questions about what happened, thereby showing that it is worth pursuing a full investigation for trial and let the actual trial system work to resolve innocent or guilt. That is how the system is designed to work. I very much doubt he takes that approach when charging drug suspects, because it creates the exact issues of clouding the legal standards and confusing the grand jury into thinking they are deciding innocence or guilt when they are not. So he says, and another guy says, my dad is a prosecutor. I'm an attorney. I worked in the DA's office. I've never seen a prosecutor work so hard to exonerate a killer. So it says the fact that this didn't at least get a trial infuriates me, but my being upset isn't that interesting. I'm white. People will take me seriously because I don't have the bias, quote unquote, bias of being black. But actual black people who live with this every day are constantly second guessed because they are somehow, quote unquote, biased, as though not wanting to get shot by police at a 21 times higher rate is a bias. It's a daily reality of being black in America. And Dennis Smith's experiences this every day. He's 21 more times likely than me to be shot by a police officer. And so he wrote not an elegy for Mike Brown. And the ending, he says, I could never imagine having to think this every day of my life. And I don't have to. Others will, though. And it's theirs and many other Americans' reality. There will be more unarmed black kids being shot by police, 21 times more. There's no question about that. The question is, how long will you tolerate it? And what are you willing to do to try to prevent it in the future? So this is a really good article, and that's why I wanted to read it to you. And it presents some very good questions about not only the case, obviously, but it presents to us the main question we should be asking, which is why are we allowing this to continue to occur in America? This happens if it's a proven statistic that black men are 21 times more likely to be shot and killed by a police officer. We have to ask ourselves why. If the reverse were true, if it were true that white men were 21 times more likely to be shot by a police officer, there would be such an investigation and people would be up in arms about it. There would be riots, et cetera, as well. And for people to act as if this is not something to be pissed off about, it's someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about and someone who's actually ignorant of the whole situation. Because only someone who has never experienced bigotry or experienced being treated as a second-class citizen or experienced being treated as if they're somehow less than someone else because they don't have the same rights or whatever when they do. Unless you've experienced that, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So shut the fuck up, basically. Because you're entitled to your opinion, but your opinion is not based in fact. It's based in opinion. That's it. Based on your perception, not based on the reality of actually having experienced every day of your life bigotry, as black people do, as Asian people do, as Hispanic people do, as people of different ethnicities, religions do, like Jews, etc. People, unless you're one of those groups of people and you experience it every single day, and some experience it more than others. I think black people experience it far more than most because black people are vilified more in this country than other races, other minorities. I think that you don't have really have a reason to say anything about it in the first place. So shut the fuck up. That's all I wanted to say about that. But this whole thing, it's amazing to me how it has really, it's even, it's not the first time this kind of thing's happened. We had the whole Trayvon Martin thing a few years ago, which did the same thing by polarizing America. But at least in that situation, we had an indictment and the guy actually went to trial, even though he got off because, anyway, I won't go into that whole thing. But the point is, even when we have more than abundant evidence that it's highly clear what happened, what really happened, in whether it be the Trayvon Martin case or whether it be this case, if it's a black person that was murdered or killed or whatever you want to call it, if it's a black person, then all of the facts all of a sudden come into question. If it's a white person, no one questions it at all. And so this is fucking America, really? This is where we live? And this is still happening in 2014, this kind of thing. And that's the problem with race in America, lately, or I should say the last, few decades, especially, since we came out of the 60s and the civil rights era. We've had to deal with race, and people who are racist, I should say, deal with race in a far more surreptitious way or manner. They don't, as I've said before in my show, it's not like they come out to your face and call you a nigger generally. They just try to fuck up your life somehow or try to take away your rights, etc. Just as much as the same as it is for gay people in some ways. So it is very disturbing to me. But the good thing is that there are people on this, and there are people who, including the United States government, who is trying to or is going to reach for an indictment against this cop, and also possibly that police department and the prosecutor who prosecuted, who's had all these weird, cop cases where all the cops that were white got off and the ones that weren't didn't. So they're looking at all this. The KKK apparently has is linked to this guy that the cop guy, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, that killed Mike Brown. So the thing is that if that's true, then obviously they have a motive for not wanting to, or for wanting to kill